Well, I'm me.
Where have you been?
Huh? Oh, I was over in England with the coronation. Yo, King Chuck says, "What's up?" Nice to see him. Cammy's like, "Yo, how you doing, dog?" Yeah, and then Churchill Downs had to get with Aaron Rodgers. Had to lay my money down with Mattress Max, and now I'm ready for backlash.
We got a podcast to start. Come on, man.
All right, well, I'm ready to go. You ready to go?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Orale. Welcome to the Sports Dojo. I am one of your hosts, the sensei himself, Fred Please, along with our technician and cameraman as well, the protege, the franchise, Taylor Eubanks. What's up, dog?
Long
How
time.
you doing? It's been way too long.
That's right.
Had to take a little time off for, just the mental. It's the beautiful thing about being in the limelight. The pressures were coming down. We had to negotiate contracts. We had to talk about things, going out and autograph signings.
So we're back.
But we're back and we're ready to go. So tonight's a crazy night. So much sports to get to. We're going to talk about a little bit about the draft. We're going to talk a little bit basketball. We're going to talk a little bit about football. And but we want to hit the Kentucky Derby. And I know you're a big Derby guy.
Totally, man.
Man. Yeah. Okay. We'll talk a little bit about the craziness that's going on there and the hats and all the crafts. But what I think is the funniest is there is the NFL quarterback booth. So you got Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes. So all these quarterbacks are there. And it all started with Tom Brady. And I think Brady will probably, not sure if he'll show up, but
Right.
I know you're not a super horse guy.
Right.
Okay. But the phenomenon that is the Derby and how it is now the place to be seen. Talk to me about, your anything. Why do we have music?
More background.
Okay, we're gonna stop. All right,
Every good podcast has some background music.
Well, it's cool. People like the background music. This is why we're professionals. This is what we had to take time off for.
That's right, man. I'll be honest with you. I don't know anything about the horse racing stuff. Usually when it's on, it would just be on in the house, and I'd go watch it, and that's about it.
Yeah, I will tell you, this is. I'm not a super horse guy. One of the people in this world that I listen to when it comes to horse racing is a guy named Dick Girardi. Dick Girardi's been in sports for 40 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's a basketball guy. He's a horseman, and so Dick Girardi was talking about the scratches.
Right.
So there's already been a couple of the favorite horse has already been scratched.
Okay.
And there was another scratch. And then this morning, we now have two horses that have died at Churchill Downs today from other races. They've collapsed. And so there's been this big push over the last couple of years in horse racing about, some of these incidents that are happening with the horses and the safety of the horses and the equine essentially, this sort of equine safety for these horses.
Right.
So that's been a little bit crazy. And what's really crazy, that they're still playing music. And so now we're back and everything is good. But anyway, so we've got, horses being scratched, including the favorite horse in this race. So that leaves a lot of openness to who's going to win. I'm going to get to my notes about who I think. I'm looking at the horse as Two Phils, who's a 9 going off at 9-1.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too. Tabit Trice and I think a lot of money's coming in on where the Angel of Empire, and that's so Mattress Max, the main money guy who's bets these huge bets. That's apparently his pick. Celebrities are getting all over it, but for my money right now, if I'm looking at it, I'm looking at two fills that is now going off at 12-1 because all the money's shifting.
Okay.
I would dare say that a lot of people think that Cyclone Mischief would be your surprise horse, or the what's the word I'm looking for? It's not the long shot to win.
Right.
I don't see it. I would say if I was going to bet anything other than what I've already put on two fills, a lot of people like Hit Show for some reason. I don't know. Mange going off at 15-1 is a good price. Two fills, like you said, they're going off at 12-1, so that would be a nice one. And if I was putting any other kind of money on a long shot, probably King's Barnes, because they run with the same one as I think it's Angel of Empire. But so that is our Derby update.
That's right.
So, and I know the Derby's going on, so I wanted to get to that quick so that when people come back and watch and they look at my
So who's your pick?
So my pick is two fills.
All right.
Two fills going off right now at 12-1. And I said I see Mange maybe second. And again, I think the favorites are the favorites for a reason.
Right.
And this is like, if you're listening to guys like Dick Girardi, people like that, they know horses, and they know that the reason why was it Angel of Empire and Tibbet Trice are going off at the odds that they're going off, and they're the favorites right now. Strong horses that have been running strong throughout the season. But what's crazy about the Kentucky Derby is a lot like the Daytona 500, because they kind of have their Super Bowl
right
first,
right, yep.
And then you enter into the Triple Crown. But,
yep.
The Derby I think is a whole lot of fluff and a whole lot of ways for people to dress up to be degenerate gamblers.
Well, so I'll tell you my pick, and again, I know zero about it.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the odds, but just for the heck of it, I'm gonna go Jace's Road.
There you go. Jace's Road's got a real shot. I mean, it, and I say that because of just listening to the people. Even though they're 50-1 long shot, that horse that horse just hasn't had a whole lot of season. So that's why they don't think that Jace can run. But
going dark horse on this one.
Yeah, well, that might be a real dark horse. Yeah. So anyway, all right. Well, that's our Derby update. I want to talk real quick about basketball and the infinite sadness that I felt last night to watch Joel Embiid finally get the MVP that he so has rightly deserved over the last 3 years, and then the Sixers just play like garbage. I mean, just utter garbage. Boston went in and
Boston's up 2-1
2-1 now, and what I do not understand. Okay, and listen, I was excited that James Harden was coming to the Sixers. They've been playing pretty well all year. He went 3 for 14 last night from the floor. Harden.
Mm-hmm.
Maxey went 2 for 15. And you think, all right, Boston just said, go ahead, Joel, go off. Because nobody else is going to score, right? And Boston can score.
Oh, yeah.
Boston can absolutely
play defense.
And it just, like, they're going to be out in the second round again. I don't have any confidence that my Sixers
are you the Dallas Cowboys of the NBA?
I don't know if I wouldn't call them the Dallas
Cowboys.
Make it
past the first round.
Yeah, that's just it. We win playoff games.
So,
but we're getting. I mean, right now they're more of the San Francisco 49ers.
Right.
They're just a bunch of paper tigers. Just a bunch of choke artists, just like the San Francisco 49ers. And by the way, your boy Debo flapping the gums again, still about how upset he is, and the Philadelphia Eagles are his new hated team because they only play with 10 players.
My boy
Debo, South Carolina.
Oh, I don't know, boy.
Debo Samuels from South Carolina.
Boy.
U.S. Gamecocks, baby.
Oh.
Bill Cox. Anyway, clown show.
Yeah.
So the 49ers are a bunch of clowns. I'm saying that Debo, we only had 10 players.
The Heat knocked off the Knicks today by 19. Yeah, and Jimmy played. Jimmy Butler played. Jimmy's, you know what? In Philadelphia, the forever debate was, why didn't we sign Jimmy and get rid of Ben Simmons? This Ben Simmons is basically not even in the league right now. Right.
And he has just become a pathetic excuse for a ball player. He really has. and he is, he's what is wrong. When people point to what is wrong with your generation, your people, okay, it's Ben Simmons. Because he is prototypical.
He's not my generation.
He's totally your generation.
No, my generation.
He's your age.
It's the generation after me.
No, it's your generation. The Ben Simmons of the world. They won all the accolades, but can't take the criticism. It's pitiful.
That's the next generation.
Pitiful. So, and then tonight is a big game. I think if LA's got to win this game.
Yeah,
absolutely 100%.
Well, AD's he's gotta be. He has to be as good as he was in the first round. He's got to dominate.
Yeah, and because again, the Warriors can score. They can just flat out get hot and start scoring. And if they don't play defense, if they don't step up, because the Lakers don't really play defense.
Oh, I disagree. I think Lakers, when their defense is on it, I think they're a great defense.
But it's rare. It's rare. I mean, they're good at defending the rim, but they can't. They have their perimeter defense.
Well, right, but they force turnovers. Then they can score in transition really well.
Yeah, well, and again, LeBron is still LeBron. Love him, hate him.
It shows since they've been healthy since the All-Star break. I think they're a very young, talented team. When you look at some of the young guys, I think
well, and they got rid of some trash.
Is good.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt's good. I think.
Yeah, the one thing is they sacrifice a lot for that supporting cast, but they have to win tonight. If they lose tonight, they lose the series.
Right.
And that's my fear, like watching the Sixers just choke away. Utterly choke away that game at home.
Yeah, it's almost like Game 3 is just such an important game in the series.
Yeah, and I think, especially like you look at even with the Denver series and how the Suns, even Game 2, like there's another pivotal game, because if the Suns come out and play the way they played in Game 2, they got a fighting shot. If not, Denver's just going to run them off the court.
Right.
And it's the same thing. It's like,
again, the Suns won last night.
Yeah, and they had a Herculean effort from Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. But Chris Paul's still out, and who knows what he's going to be. But Denver can play a little bit. And as much as, I don't love the Joker because he can't play defense.
Right.
Jamal Murray's solid, and they have a solid group. But right now, Boston's just scary. They're just scary because they're good on both ends. And I hate to say that because I can't stand Boston. I've never been able to stand Boston. Even, back when you go back to Doc and Larry Bird and all those battles and it just, like, it sickens me to say that. They're probably the most balanced team because they can score, they can play defense, and they can protect the rim, they can protect the perimeter. They're a good team.
Yeah,
I hate to say it, but
I think we'll see. I think we will see, in my opinion, Miami and Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, I don't think Miami's got enough. Like the Knicks are not great,
right?
And the Knicks kind of
I think Boston or Philly is the clear cut.
Yeah, they're probably the two best teams left.
Right.
But it's just like you said. I don't think the Sixers got enough.
Yeah.
Because if everybody other than Embiid doesn't step up, they're doomed. They're just utterly doomed. So here's our basketball rig. Look at us blowing through this. I'm telling you what, I'm glad I jumped on that Concorde and got there, and got to see. By the way, Liverpool winning again, took out the Brentford Bees. So during the coronation, King Chuck and I were checking the phones, like, what's Liverpool doing? All right, very good. Little EPL for you. Big game for Arsenal. Tomorrow for our EPL, our fans of the EPL. Right. I know you're a huge soccer fan. I know you love soccer.
I like soccer. I do. I just don't take the time to watch it, but I love soccer.
Well, how do you love it? You don't.
I could watch.
You watch the World Cup, right?
Yeah, I watch the World Cup. I watch. Yeah, but I'm not taking time. It's not enough time in the day.
What are you talking about? It's a beautiful game. It's absolutely just fantastic. And I become a soccer fan. I'm not gonna lie about this.
Time in the day. I would take the time to watch it.
Yeah, that's why you take them. It's a beauty. And then on the Peacock, you can go back and rewatch.
Well, and if I want to see, I don't care to watch MLS because
the only team that matters is Nashville. So
The only thing I care to
Nashville
watch
FC.
is U.S. national team men's and women's.
yeah,
Don't care about the other
I'll
countries.
tell you the women are so much better.
Oh, I
Um,
know.
But yeah, I mean, again, the only reason why you watch Nashville FC is because of Danny Lovett's probably the greatest left-footed defender in the MLS. My former student,
No.
love Danny. Hashtag love Lovett's. So anyway, speaking of Peacock, and let's get to the real talk.
Let's do it.
Orale, Backlash, the return of the LWO. Bad Bunny coming out of nowhere, going to be in a street fight, man. Orale, ba, ba, ba. Uno, dos, tres, vatos locos.
And you really look
I'm
like
telling
Ray
you.
in that match.
I'm telling you, you can't tell the difference. Outside of no tattoos, I am Ray. I embrace Ray. And yeah, by the way, lest anyone confused, that's legit right there.
That's legit.
That's from the border, baby.
Too legit to quit.
That's right, because that's how Ray is. We have you got the I'm gonna get the match rundown because there's so you know what as weird as it is, I'm actually very excited about this pay-per-view because I think the matches are gonna be really good.
I do too. I think even though things really start technically on Monday, I think they're gonna set the tone with this pay-per-view. They're gonna make the best of what's on it.
I do hope so. And the reason why I say that, I hope so is because sometimes these get really, really messy. You know what I mean? Like these pay-per-views. And let's start
from the bottom.
Right. Now, before we even get to this, okay, I want to go back and ask you, did you see AEW this week?
Not much.
So they did the firm deletion.
Okay.
Which was, from the Hardy compound. When I tell you that is sports entertainment at its utter finest, is the firm deletion. You got to go back. And the beautiful thing too is on Bleacher Report, so they had to cut a lot of the match because of TV and time. But you can go back and watch the full match online. And let me just tell you, first and foremost, the Hardy Boys are absolute legends. Absolute legends. I'm going to tell you this too, that All Ego Ethan Page, he's a dude. And I'm going to tell you why he's a dude. Because you absolutely believe that he is the biggest jerk in the world. But he will put people over like nobody's business. And they had Big Bill, the former Big Cass, W. Morrissey, whatever his name. By the way, he's a monster.
Oh, yeah.
He is an absolute monster.
Yeah.
But it was so entertaining. And I want to give a shout out to Stokely Hathaway because he sold the Hardy boys, the Hardy children, whooping his rear end. He was fantastic. And the best line is, I'm going to call Tony Khan and complain and sue and all this other stuff about getting beat up by a 3-year-old. He was phenomenal. The whole thing was phenomenal. And big shout out to AEW. So that was just that. And for all of our fans who are, who watch us for the only reason, which is really professional wrestling, which is really why we do this.
How was SmackDown last night? I saw the very opening couple minutes.
Yeah, SmackDown, it was a good, what do you call it?
It was in Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah, it was in Puerto Rico. The crowd was unbelievable.
Okay.
They are so excited to have this pay-per-view. What do they call them? The go away shows or the go home shows, right? Before the pay-per-views. First and foremost, shout out to the fans in Puerto Rico. Shout out to every person that booed the living snot out of Dominic Mysterio, because every time Dom tried to talk, even in the press conference, Dom, they booed him and booed. He is so over right now. Like that he has nuclear heat. And you can't ask for more than that right now, especially going in there.
Doing what he's supposed to do.
Yeah. The matches were what the matches were. I gotta say, I am actually excited to watch Bad Bunny and Damian Priest. Yeah. And I'm excited because, I was listening to Tommy Dreamer this week, and Dreamer talked about how, historically you've always had stars come in, but not towards this level. Like
Right.
not since McAfee, right? So McAfee and Adam Cole, when they did their thing, that was a
Right.
little different. There was years ago, like when AJ Styles was still in TNA and it had AJ Perninsky, and there you go back to the NWO with when Dennis Rodman came in and Karl Malone and there was all that kind of stuff. But what Tommy Dreamer pointed out, which makes Bunny different, is Bunny's on top of the world right now. Like he is with, arguably the biggest recording star in the world, and he's doing a Puerto Rican street fight with Damian Priest, and the two of them, he's selling this, like he's an act, like a
He's
regular.
been doing it for years.
Yeah, and shout out to him. I mean, it's the perfect venue, right?
Mhm.
So a street fight, and you can have all the shenanigans that you have in a street fight. But big shout out to Money, because first and foremost, that crowd is going to be electric in Puerto Rico, right? It already is. Like I said, SmackDown was out of control, absolutely out of control. And what's so crazy is like I looking on the sheets, and I'll tell you who was over, but you didn't see it, was LA Knight.
Mm-hmm.
LA Knight is so over right now that it's just it's scary how good he is.
Maybe he'll win Money in the Bank.
Well, it's just, the focus is going to be on the new WWE World Championship, which, by the way, is a consolation prize. Lest anyone be confused. Total consolation prize. It absolutely is. Well, and here's what doesn't make any sense. You're going to have people from Raw and SmackDown in a tournament competing for the title. But you know that somebody from Raw is going to win because Roman's on SmackDown, right?
Rollins.
Yeah. Well, it could be Cody. Well, and again, Seth has earned it. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem putting it on Seth. I wouldn't have a problem putting
Cody
it on.
will take it from Seth.
Yeah, you know what's going to be Brock. So depending on how this plays out, and we'll talk about this, but with Brock being a free agent,
right?
You know that's how they always work this crap, because he's still a draw.
Right.
So anyway, all right, let's talk.
Rollins and Owens.
All right, yeah, okay. I don't even know what to make of this match.
Well, but I'm intrigued to see. How good Seth is.
Yeah.
So, he's going to make the best out of this match.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm intrigued to see how it's going to go.
Yeah, I think he's going to make Omos look strong.
Right.
But ultimately, the problem with Omos is, what do you do with him? Because you can't, he's so big, right?
Right.
And he really is an athlete.
Right.
But he's stiff because he's so big.
He's so corny.
Well, but again, what can you do with him?
It's like trying to be scary, like when he screams, and no one's like a big teddy bear. Or something.
Yeah. Well, but again, this was kind of the problem they always had with the Big Show. Big
Show was actually, I feel,
he had a little more. He had a little more to him. He was a little more substantive.
Right.
But ultimately, that's kind of like almost is a poor man's Big Show. Because he's got the athleticism.
He's just a monster.
He is a monster, but he's stiff.
Yeah.
And I know that Undertaker's been working with him, and I know MVP's been working with him. So I think this is an opportunity. And I thought he made it. I thought he had a good match with Brock at WrestleMania.
How far do you take him? How long do you hold on to them?
Well, you have to give him something, like an undefeated streak, or you have to give him something, because otherwise, all he's going to do is just squash matches. But then you get beat by Brock at WrestleMania. So and I don't see Seth isn't going to lose this match.
No.
So, but the problem with somebody like Omos is, and he, you know what? I take it back. He's not the Big Show. He's Strowman. He's a poor man's Braun Strowman. And even now, you got to put Strowman with Ricochet because he's.
I can't stand.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it. I mean, I know why they did it, but TV wise, storyline wise, it just makes no sense. It's just.
Well, again, it's the big guy, little guy. They did it with Kane and Daniel Bryan, but those guys were so over.
They were talented.
Yeah, well, Ricochet's really talented.
Yes, I know he is.
Yeah.
Braun is.
Yeah, but I don't understand. Like Ricochet can't get over. And I think a lot of it has to do with Vince, and Vince never really believing in the little guys.
Yeah, but you put him. You just gotta treat him like kind of those same size guys they did back in the day. I mean,
yeah. Well, again, and that's the one thing.
put him in the right
AEW
matches against the right people.
Right. But again, like, what do you do with Almost? Because there aren't enough guys that look his size. Like, you got Strowman.
You get rid of him.
Yeah, but again, the guy's not bad.
He's not good enough.
Well, but again, he can get better. You know, but it's got to be the right venue with him. You know, it's got to be the Almost challenge. Like,
Put him in a Punjabi prison match.
Yeah, Punjabi prison match. Perfect.
I'm waiting for it.
Maybe he'll start something with Jinder
They
Mahal.
need to bring Jinder back.
Well, Jinder is coming back.
I've always said the
And
best
Bashir is coming back.
who would make a great tag team would be Jinder.
Ali?
No, Jinder Mahal. They'd all be heels. Jinder, Sheamus, and probably
Drew?
Drew.
Well, they tried that years ago. They were like the United Nations. It didn't work.
Yeah, but Drew wasn't part of it.
No, but it was Sheamus. It was
There was like
Rusev.
5 of them.
It was Sheamus, Rusev, Jinder, and some other schmuck.
Right,
But it
but
didn't work.
it would work with Drew, Sheamus. and
Yeah, but see, Sheamus and the Brutes work.
right.
You know, and
It does.
and maybe you start something with Jinder and Inder Shear, whoever those big monsters are. And maybe Almost kind of works in with them somehow. I don't know. The
only way it almost works is he's the big guy. I mean, not that Bobby needs it, but you put him in the Hurt Business as the guy who stands in the background.
Yeah,
That's it.
Wait, well, who's the big guy that they got on AEW? The former basketball player. He's with Jeff Jarrett and
Yeah.
and I mean, he doesn't do a whole lot because he doesn't need to, but occasionally gets involved and it's fine. And you know, but that's the problem with Almost is like you got to give him something.
Give him his paycheck and let him stand in the background.
But I think you can work him. I saw a clip of something. I guess it was at Table for Three, and it was the Hurt Business, and you forget like how good they were in such a short period of time. Like they worked so well. Like, and you could bring him in like they did years ago with the Nation of Domination, right? So it was Rock, Mark Henry, Godfather, and there was D'Lo Brown, right? So they were the Nation. Now you can imagine like that's a Hurt Business,
right?
You bring Almost, Bobby, and Cedric and Sheldon, right? And then MVP's there, and it's almost in a weird way. It would
Very
be like,
believable.
Yeah, and it would be kind of in a weird way creating kind of a Four Horsemen because it would be back because it was it was Flair and they always had that fourth. Like originally it was Flair and Tully Blanchard and the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, which is Ole and Arn.
Right.
And then Ole left, and then they put Arn and Tully together, and Arn and Tully were just unbelievable. And then they would bring like Barry Windham in, or they brought Psycho Sid in, or whoever. But the original four was Ole and Arn, was Tully, and was Flair, and they loved each other, and you could see like that could work. Like you talk about a faction, you talk about a faction that not only would mess with the bloodline, they could mess with the Good Brothers, they could mess with anybody, and maybe just maybe something will come out of this with
they could take Brock out. I mean, you talk about like the old Shield days of taking anybody and everybody out.
Yeah.
Next time Brock leaves, hey, the way you take him out, take him off TV, have that business.
Yeah, I mean, I think that works, but I don't know if they'll do it.
Why don't we call him up?
All right, well, we
got Hunter's number.
Hold on. Yeah, H, are you listening? All right, Triple H, I know you're watching. What's up, bro?
Make it happen.
Okay, I'm excited for you. I know Puerto Rico. I know you're down there with Stephanie. You guys are having a great time with the family. Hey, Hurt Business. Make it happen. Bring Almost back.
Almost.
MVP is your JJ Dillon. Yeah, he's JJ Dillon. You got 5 guys, but yeah. All right, anyway, but I think ultimately I think Seth's not losing that fight.
Right.
He may not win the match, but he's not losing the fight.
Right.
Okay.
All right. United States Championship.
Yeah. It's Bobby. So now, can you imagine? and I love Bronson Reed. Like, I love this.
Oh, yeah.
This
He's
is
talented.
this is meaty men slapping meat, just like Big E talks about, right? And Theory, if Theory's smart, he'll just stay out of the way.
Mhm.
But I really like what he's been doing. So I think it's a good match. I don't think Austin loses, right?
I don't think so.
I think somehow. But I love Bronson Reed.
Mhm.
I mean, I think him and Bobby, like, I'm glad those two are going after each other.
Mhm.
In a weird way, it was like when Wardlow and Powerhouse Hobbs,
Mhm.
like that, they just let them beat on each other.
Right.
But I think I mean, ultimately, I think Theory walks out with the championship.
He's gonna weasel his way out with
Yeah.
the title. Yeah.
Now, if he doesn't, it's probably because they're going to put the belt on probably Bobby, and then Theory goes into the World Championship tournaments.
Theory reminds me a lot of he's gonna be the new, more athletic Miz.
Yeah. I mean, Theory's he gets it.
He can get the heat like Miz. He's gonna be the guy
Yeah.
for years that will weasel his way out of the match to get a win.
Right.
He's more athletic.
Yeah, I think that the hardest part right now is you got Theory kind of coming up at a time with MJF. Now, I know it's two different organizations, right? But MJF is the quintessential rat. I mean, he is, and he's so phenomenal. And again, shout out to AEW for featuring the four pillars. You got Darby and Jungle Boy and Sammy, who I love. I love Sammy. And I love MJF. So Theory could conceivably be that. He also has, in a weird way, a little Punk in him, because Punk could get nuclear heat. He just never, Punk is what Punk is, right? But he's a guy who could get nuclear heat, and I think Theory's developing into one of those type of characters. But ultimately, I think he walks away with the U.S. Championship, because somehow Bronson Reed and Bobby beat each other senseless.
I do too.
But he, or if he does lose, it's because they're putting him into this tournament. So that's where we're at. All right. Want to talk? Let's talk a little bit about the women's matches. So you got Bianca Belair against Io Sky.
And Bianca still wins.
Yeah, I think they're going to give her the record, whatever that record is.
However, I would love, like we talked about earlier, we think the matches will be good. Will they kind of set the tone? Man, I would love a little surprise. I love Bianca, and she deserves it.
Yeah, she does.
I wouldn't mind a surprise either. And
the surprise would be Io winning. Like, somehow Damage Control influences the outcome of that match, and Io pulls off the victory, because then Bianca is on SmackDown. Rhea's on Raw, right? Because isn't Judgment Day on Raw?
She's moving to Raw.
So, and then what it does is it opens up the women's. Again, it's so weird about.
It gives more of the mid-card girls, women, a more realistic chance against Io, just because it's simply size alone. You put anybody against a Rhea or a Bianca or Charlotte, and there's only so many people
right? But I think the difference about, and what I like about Io's an incredible athlete. I mean, she really is, and she is athletically on par with them. So in a weird, Raquel is as big as those three, right?
I just forgot about her,
right? Yeah. But she doesn't have it,
right?
And it's a shame, because I think she's an athlete. I mean, you can tell, and but she doesn't have that it factor. Like, Bianca has the it factor. Rhea absolutely
has turned it on.
100%.
Since she turned heel.
And the greatest thing that she's done.
She leads that factor.
Yeah. And that was the one thing too last night. Like, she challenged Ray last night, right? And of course, Zelina gets in there, and we'll get to them in a minute. But so Bianca, I don't know what you did. Like, are they going to do that dumb title exchange like they did with Becky and Charlotte, which was just a disaster? I mean, I don't think Rhea cares. I mean, they don't have that sort of heat between the two of them,
right?
But the problem is Like, you can't have the Raw Women's Champion on SmackDown.
Right. I mean, it's clear even if they stay the same, they're just going to simply switch them.
Right. But you almost like it. If this was anywhere other than Puerto Rico, you could have done Rhea versus Bianca one last time, and then they just take each other's belts, right? At least you get a match out of it, and they back and forth and whatever, draw, switch belts, good. But let's go on to Zelina as being the number one.
Don't you think it's just going to be? They're just going to give her a great match.
Yeah, but again,
she loses.
Here's the thing, though. I think Zelina is really underrated.
She's she's talented. She reminds me a lot of I can't think of her. I mean, she's athletic as all get out.
Yeah.
She's just small.
And in a weird way, it's the problem with Liv Morgan. It's the problem with who's our crazy girl who was now like nobody can find her. Yeah, like Alexa Bliss. Alexa's a great wrestler. And Trish was that way. Right. But Trish just had Trish is on such a different level, right? Even this heel turn thing that she's doing with Becky, which I don't personally don't understand any of it, but like Trish is a Hall of Famer for a reason. All the rest of those women are just not quite there, but like Liv could be,
right?
Alexa certainly could be because Alexa's pretty crafty in this act,
right?
And Zelina could be. Because she had that run when she was the queen.
Right.
She had that run with Carmella. Like, they're really, really good. But the WWE doesn't do enough with the women. Like, if you look at what AEW has done versus what they're doing in the WWE, it's the same nonsense.
The only thing they do is stick with the top 5 or 6 that are.
And it's always, and they like. AEW has developed their women's division. Like their women's division is legit.
Right.
Okay. Even the stuff they're doing with Saraya and Tony Storm and Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, who I absolutely love. The t-shirt kills me with the black eye and but that's but Zelina's she's gonna have incredible crowd support. The people are gonna go nuts for her. Rhea's gonna win. Right. And then who knows what is going to happen, right? So, but that's I don't expect either one of those women to lose.
Right, I don't either.
Yeah, if anybody's going to lose, it's Bianca, and it's only because they're going to do something with the belts.
Right.
I mean, I don't even know what you're going to do, but yeah. All right, I want to talk. Let's talk about Cody and Brock.
All right.
Because now we're talking about the most decorated combat sports champion of all time.
So I know he doesn't need it, but because I feel like what's about to happen is they're about to make it a year of hell for Cody.
Hard times, baby.
Just to
hard times, baby.
Result that much. So
hard
do you think
times.
We see a
hard times.
SummerSlam Cena and Brock Lesnar Suplex City match?
Maybe. But I don't think Cody's losing. I don't think Cody's losing. No. Hard times, baby. Hard times. It goes back to the road that Dusty took back for Starrcade 85. Now, I know that's way before your time, right? But they built that to where that was the feud of the year, was Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes, Starrcade 85. And Dusty didn't even win Starrcade 85. It wasn't until a few months later that he got the belt. But when Dusty gave the hard times, and I remember it because I was a kid, but I remember Ric Flair. You put hard times on Dusty Rhodes. You put hard times on Dusty Rhodes' family. There's no honor among thieves, right? And he was just stream of consciousness, and it's one of the all-time great promos, And it goes back a little bit to something Bully Ray was talking about, where it's every time you think Cody's going to get there, they're going to put that block in his way, and it's just storytelling.
Right, it's going to be a great story.
Yeah, and this thing, like you had the world title, you had it, you had Roman Reigns beat. Solo comes in, boom. Here's Brock. Brock's got your back, and then all of a sudden Brock turns, and nobody knows why.
Right.
Nobody knows why.
Because he can.
Because he's Brock.
Because
Right?
he can.
Because he can. And then Brock, but I think Cody wins.
Okay.
And I think it's just going to be one roadblock after another until finally he gets. Now, one of the things that's interesting is that he's on Raw with Seth, and
Right.
again, Brock can go either way, but which is so stupid. But the point being, I really think they should have put him on SmackDown, because then Cody could have said, "I'm not going away." And
throughout the year, you keep getting those reminders.
I'm still here. I'm still the bloodline. I'm still here.
Yeah.
But instead, he's getting it'll be the battle for the consolation prize. And I don't even know why you call it the World Championship. I mean, you should have just called it the WWE title or something like that. Like, the fact that you're calling it a World Championship it makes it even more so.
Why?
Because what? So the World Championship is as important as the Universal Championship? Like, stop.
Yeah, but Universal, that's just so gimmicky. That's WWE.
Well, it was at the time, right?
It still is.
Right. But the point being, then make that the world title. Make this the WWE title.
Right.
I just, when Bully Ray talked about this, and I started thinking about this, it really is. It's a consolation prize because of the contract that Roman negotiated. And in a weird way, Brock did it too. When Brock was champ, because he just would show up whenever. And what was really funny was,
but I feel like Roman shows up still a lot more than Brock did.
Oh, absolutely does. But he's still a part-time champion.
And even if I could care less if Roman wrestles every night. Yeah. He's better on. I'd rather see him on the mic half the time.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's what The Rock. What was really funny was they were telling stories. So it's Bully Ray and Mark Henry, right? Mm-hmm. And they were talking about when The Rock was essentially a part-time champion because he's making movies, and Cena did it too, right?
Right.
And Seth is coming out talking about how we really, I'm here to fight, and I'm here to do all that. And Bully Ray was so funny. He goes, "There is not a single professional wrestler on the planet that says, 'Oh no, I can make the same amount of money and work half the days.' No, I don't want to do that." I was cracking up because it's so true.
Right.
And listen, it's not Roman's fault that he has gotten this level, right? So either, Roman goes off or does whatever, like the rest of them have, or, listen, they were talking about how when Rock was champion, right? He literally would just come, show up, be on the mic, and he wouldn't even change. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't even change into his gear, right? But they laughed because everybody was on Rock time. Right. So, and Bubba Ray was so upset one time. He said, they've been planning this for a couple of weeks. Rock wasn't around. Right? So Rock shows up, and of course, Rock's, gets there at 10, and he's got to have his protein shakes and all this stuff. So it's like 2:00 in the afternoon before the show starts at 5. So Bubba Ray and Devon are going over what the Dudleys are going to do. And The Rock's like, "Yeah, that sounds great. Except that doesn't sound great for The Rock." And Bully Ray said he hit the roof. He started cursing at The Rock and screaming. But, eventually everybody calmed down and they worked it out. But he said, I wanted to kill Rock. I wanted to murder him. But then you realize if I was in his position, I would do the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think this whole world title thing it's a consolation prize. It's, how is
it? More people are going to be, I'm not saying.
And I'll tell you what, Gunther is incredible. And of course, Imperium had a match against the Street Profits last night. Mm-hmm. And I guess the Street Profits are going to make a run, right? Because they're still, the one thing about them is they're still so over. Mm-hmm. And without the New Day, you got to have a team that's just huge. Right. And that's the Street Profits. Yeah. And by the way, they're both great. Montez and Angelo are phenomenal. They're great workers. And I think, but I don't know how you're going to roll this thing with the bloodline into that. Because they're going to be on SmackDown, I think. And the bloodline are there. But Kevin and Sammy are.
You don't think the bloodline wins tonight, do you?
No, I don't, because that you got to push the storyline.
Right.
So the storyline is Solo becomes the enforcer,
He's
and
gonna
it's
eventually.
it's the cracks in the bloodline storyline. But I think it's going to be a good match because, quite honestly, like I love I love Sammy and I love Kevin and I love them together because I think it's great. And I think somehow Sammy and there's going to be all that back talk with Sammy and Jay. And again, what I'm waiting for is Sammy and Jay to unite. You know, but Riddle. I mean, God bless him, but I'm almost praying that Randy comes back and just RKO's everybody, so that Riddle has to make a choice.
That's the next roadblock for Cody. Comes in, he's like, Cody, congrats on winning, man.
Right.
And then, bam, RKO.
Maybe, but that's if Randy ever comes back. So I'm curious to see what happens. Like if Roman has to be the reason they win. You know how they pulled that in the past where Roman's come in and cleaned up things. I don't know. I want the bloodline storyline to keep going, but I don't know where it goes. Because how many more times can we watch the same matches? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, I do think Riddle and KO and Sammy win. I think, we have the cracks in the bloodline, but ultimately I want to see Sammy and Jay come together. Right. It's just weird. I just wanted to see it.
Right. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. And listen, I like Riddle, but I love KO, but even KO's like, all right, I'm sick of this kid. Like, yeah, because he would be, but then what do you do with it? Like, are you going to start them feuding? Because then it's just, whatever.
Well, I think with now both brands being separated pretty much, it's just going to open up.
Yeah.
Obviously not for the world title, but even in storyline, it's going to open up the opportunity for new, fresh storylines.
Well, and what I'm actually hoping, because I'm a big fan of the OC, right? I really would like to see like the bloodline sort of break off and do something with AJ, even if it's a short time,
right?
Even if it's short.
Yeah.
Because I love the Good Brothers, always have.
Right.
It's Bullet Club. It's Too Sweet. I would like to see AJ push that.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think they're going to put AJ in this world title mix, but man, the Usos and the Good Brothers, like that's some good matches.
We haven't really. I don't know if we saw much of that the first time OC was.
No, because
around,
they were
not much.
No.
So.
But I think they're building that faction up. I mean, it's Bullet Club. It's not
right. I mean, who wouldn't want to see the Bloodline versus Bullet Club?
Yeah. Or the other. I mean, they were starting to build up. The Judgment Day and the OC, but now they're split brands. I just don't. I don't know where it all goes. But I think what's going to be interesting is you hope that the storylines are at least credible and they're interesting.
Believable.
Yeah. I like some of the call-ups. I think Grayson Waller is a little too Austin Theory-ish. I don't know how he's going to work. Karrion Kross took a loss to Shinsuke. So what do you do with Kross?
Yeah.
I mean, he came in so hot to NXT, and then they've soured on him.
Even this time.
Yeah. But he lost clean. He lost clean to Shinsuke.
Right.
So Shinsuke is going to be in this title hunt too.
Right.
But they're not going to put the belt on Shinsuke.
Did Breaker get drafted?
No, they're going to keep him. He needs work. He needs seasoning. He's still raw. Like he's not his uncle, and he's not his. Right. He's more his dad than his uncle.
They're gonna let this heel turn play.
Yeah, I was surprised though. I really thought they'd bring up Carmella because Carmella's good. Yeah. Carmella Hayes. I don't know. Breaker is more his dad than his uncle.
Don't be surprised if now that Breaker is a heel.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it'll drag it out too much or take too long, but don't be surprised if they make Breaker the first guy to win the title 3 times.
Yeah. He's good. I mean, there's no denying his athleticism.
Right.
He's a monster, right? But the reality is, like I said, he's more his dad, and his dad was the dog-faced Kremlin.
Right.
And, Scotty was Big Papa Pump with the hookup, right? But Scotty had all the charisma. Mm-hmm. And even when they were just the Steiner brothers, mm-hmm. right? Like they would come in with the University of Michigan, and but Scott just had more of it, and and Rick was just a grinder. You know, he put a hurting on you, right?
Mhm.
His boys put a hurting on people.
Mhm.
That's why I used to love those matches between the Steiners and the Hart Foundation because they were just knockdown, drag out battles. So, and Braun doesn't really have anybody like that. Like, if you brought Braun in with almost like with Bronson Reed
Mhm.
and the two of them, and then you do something with the Hurt business,
Mhm.
okay. Because you could totally see Braun wanting to challenge every big man out there
Right.
and Reed, but I don't know. Breaker's just not, he's not there. They want him to be. My God, they want him to be. But he's just not there. Carmelo has so much more over him than what they got, but he's just such a pure.
But are they going to do
athlete.
anything with him with his size? I mean,
Well, that's what I mean. He's a physical specimen, right?
No, I'm talking about with Carmelo.
I don't know because Carmelo's small, but he's a tremendous, and it's like Wesley. Wesley's a tremendous athlete, and just like you think about those kind of matches, like you think you could put like Carmelo and Finn, or AJ and Wesley, or what's his name, like Mustafa Ali and Wesley would be an unbelievable match, or even Ricochet. Like Ricochet and Carmelo would be unbelievable. What they were, they had a great match.
Right.
But the WWE just doesn't do that. Like as long as Vince is pulling any strings, that's just not going to happen. And again, that's where I give AEW credit because AEW develops those guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they may never be the world champions, but people get behind them.
It was great.
Yeah. So the last one we got is the street fight. And I honestly think Priest wins. I think there's shenanigans, but ultimately, who stands tall? The LWO. And
you think Priest wins?
I do. I do think Priest wins. Because you can't, like, if Bad Bunny wins, then where do you go with that? But if he screws Bunny in Puerto Rico, there's so many more options. You know, Bunny will come back after tour or whatever. I do think shenanigans happen. I do think that I do think Priest wins the match, but Bunny stands tall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it makes sense because if Bunny wins, then you're like, okay, here's Damian Priest, who's probably been the best worker over the last 3 to 4 months, and you're going to lose to a guy that's, you know, half your size and a singer. Like it just doesn't.
Right.
Yeah, and even Logan Paul hasn't won, so that's the good thing. And I don't think Bunny's going to win, but I think Bunny makes a good showing.
Yeah.
And listen, yeah, and it's going to be nothing but shenanigans.
Right.
Like the LWO is going to be, and it's just going to be battling and fighting and all this other stuff, which is great. But I think ultimately Priest screws Bunny, but Bunny stands tall.
Right. I agree.
Because it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's the right thing, absolutely the right thing to do. So that's about it. Yeah. I mean, the only other thing too is I know you're not much of a UFC guy, but big UFC fight tonight between Henry Cejudo and the champion Aljamain Sterling. That is going to be a fight. Now, I never try to predict the UFC because the UFC never works out the way you think it's going to work out. But I'm going to tell you that this is going to be a bloodbath in the UFC. I think Cejudo and Sterling, they may go all 5 rounds, and it may just be a bloodbath. And Cejudo was one of the guys that showed up from American Top Team when they were doing that thing at AEW, right? Cejudo's a bad boy, but so is Sterling. But Sterling's quick. So for all our UFC fans out there, I'm going to say that Sterling retains, but I think it's going to be a split decision to set something up. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to wrap up the great return of the Sports Dojo. You know, we've been talking for a solid hour and forever, and just keep going. We want to thank everybody who reached out to us and been so supportive to us. So many things have kind of been going on in both of our lives that, you know, we're glad we're able to get back to this, and the Sports Dojo is going to come back. It's going to come back fierce, strong, like it's never been. And ultimately, LWO, baby, orale. All right, man, let's get on that play. Let's get down to Puerto Rico. All right, Sports Dojo, out. Asa. Oh, boy.